Hey everyone, Ellie Jacobson here for Advanced Advantage Play. And today I want to cover a topic I don't think I've really covered in depth before. And that topic is motivated by a viewer question. And let me just show you what the subject line is of this question, because I think that pretty much says it all. Questions on edge sorting, three-card poker, and Mississippi stud. So the real point here is this idea that we have this technique called edge sorting, which is taking advantage of asymmetries on the edges of ordinary, very common casino playing cards, and using that to vary our strategy across a wide variety of games to get an edge over the house. And of course, famously, Phil Ivey did this and made millions of dollars in several casinos back about 10, 12 years ago, and did not succeed in court afterwards. But it was never really ruled illegal, so he's not in jail, but this is a technique that's right on the edge. So use it at your own risk. But I think it's a very interesting question to dive into edge sorting proprietary games. So let's just go ahead and do a little bit of a review of edge sorting to begin with. So edge sorting is taking advantage of asymmetries on the back of very common ordinary playing cards. So for example, on this card, you might notice that the right-hand side and left-hand side, those triangles are not exactly the same size. Likewise, the top and the bottom along that edge, you might notice the large triangles, half triangles at the top, and the small half triangles at the bottom. So this would be a very readable card should you see this in a casino. And so just to go through a few of the types of asymmetries that cards have and show you this. These two cards, they both have top and bottom asymmetries. So the top edge is different than the bottom edge. And they also have left and right asymmetries. The left and right edges are different from each other. Here we have this idea of faded cards, cards with a fade. And a lot of times people think, well, these definitely are, how can you tell any asymmetry along the edges? They got this fade into them. Well, you might notice that the width of the border, the width of this fade is not identical. It's just not printed very well, right? So that the red card, you notice the top and the bottom are asymmetric, and the blue card, the left and the right, are asymmetric as far as the width of the fade. A lot of times people say, well, why don't we just use a plain back? Certainly that would be take care of any edges. Well, then we can look for very, very small details, like where a particular part of the design might touch another part. And I'll let you just sort of micro-inspect these cards, but in fact the arrows are pointing to asymmetries in the back design. Sometimes we have center asymmetries, and these are certainly among the easiest. Now, the River Road Casino, if you flip that thing over, rotate it 180 degrees, the word River Road will be upside down. So that one's pretty easy. But the one on the left-hand side, you might notice these oval designs, that sort of circle with the 6 dots in the middle of it. Along the word casino, on the bottom part of that, you notice that the black part of the casino is sort of tangent to the outside of that oval. Whereas in the upper word casino, you'll notice that the black part of the casino logo there kind of cuts right through that oval. So that is an asymmetry you can use, again, by rotating the card this or that direction. And here's another card. Again, we have a 5-pointed star in the center. So that 5-pointed star in the center, well, look, that point is either going to point up or point down. So that's a card that we could certainly rotate 180 degrees and use that to gain knowledge. So these are a variety of cards. And as far as how you use that information, well, essentially what you need in order to pull off an edge sorting plan at a casino, right? Some sort of way of doing this is you need to get the cards sorted. So you need to either handle the card yourself or to be able to manage to get the dealer sort of unknowingly to sort the card. So the first step is you want to think in terms of the game having two groups of cards that are important. So in Baccarat, it might be the high card 6, 7, 8, 9 versus the low card 0 through 5. In Blackjack, it might be the faces and aces are one group, and all the other cards are the other group. And what you want to do is get the design, that asymmetric design, situated so that one of the groups has that design sort of on the right hand side or on the top, or if it's a center design, situated one direction, and the other group situated the other direction. So that after you've sorted all the cards, you can just sort of look at the back of the card and you can see, just by virtue of the orientation of that asymmetry, which of those two groups the card belongs to. So edge sorting is always dividing the deck of cards into two groups. Now, this has been successfully used at Blackjack. I have had personal experience where I know about a team that's attacked a double deck game very successfully for a long period of time using edge sorting. Likewise, we know Phil Ivey did this in Baccarat. So you don't need to have necessarily a full table. You just need control over all the cards. You need to not have other players, anonymous players at the table messing with them. You have to make sure that the shuffle procedure itself doesn't have a turn in it, that when the dealer collects the cards, they collect them always in the same way so that they're not introducing any randomness in terms of the orientation of the card. And you need patience because you're going to have to get the deck sorted to begin with, right? So, and then there's always going to be errors. There's always going to be some number of cards that you have not successfully sorted. So, there will be errors as part of this. So what I know for sure is that Caribbean Stud has been edge sorted very successfully. Of course, that game's not very common anymore. And so I started exploring other games, just seeing, well, what would it take to edge sort 3-card poker and Mississippi Stud and any other game that sort of seemed like there was an obvious group of qualifying cards, good cards, and unqualifying cards. So in Caribbean Stud, you King and Ace are the qualifiers, and in 3-card pokers, Queen, King, Ace, and so on. So when we have these qualifiers, it sort of makes it a little bit easier to think about how you would go about doing this. So now in Caribbean Stud, the two groups are the 2 through Queen in one group and the King and Ace in the other. And the dealer is going to place their 5 cards down on the table, and so we're going to be competing against the dealer. And if we know what the dealer's cards are, it gives us insight into how strong or weak our hand is in order to be able to play against the dealer's hand. So you can get quite a significant edge, 6.9% with perfect sorting of the cards, with the perfect read of all of the cards without any errors. And I'm not sure any team has ever really managed the full 6.9, but that's a lot to play with as far as errors go. So if we go back to the original email, the email asks about 3-card poker and Mississippi Stud. So let's just go ahead and look at those two. So if we look at 3-card poker, well, here it is, Queen, King, Ace, right? So what is it going to take? Well, the problem is, let's just suppose you have 6 seats at the table. So each of the players that dealt 3 cards has 18 cards, right? So you're going to be able to sort 18 cards at a time, hopefully. And there's going to be 2 decks of cards that are going to be alternatingly put back into the shuffler for the next go round. And you have to hope that there's no turn involved. And then the dealer is going to have to expose their cards before you make your playful decision, right? So you can be able to see the backs of those cards. So this is a rare circumstance where you see the back of all 3 cards. There's no mistakes being made. All the cards are sorted. There's no chaos in how the dealer is collecting the cards. And if all of that happens, if all of that good stuff happens, then you get a huge edge over the house, no question about it. And so suppose you're looking down at the dealer's hand and you don't see any of that group king, queen, ace. Then you're just going to play whatever cards you were dealt. If what you see is one of them, right, then you know the dealer has exactly one queen, king, or ace, then you need to beat a queen. So your strategy is to only play kings or better. If you see two of them down there are king, queens, and ace, then the worst the dealer could have is a king, queen, X, and you're going to beat a king, queen with an ace, queen, right? So that's, if you see they have two, then you need to have a hand that's ace, queen, or better. And if they have three cards, if you can identify before you make your playful decision that all three of their cards are aces, kings, or queens, then what do they have? Well, they either have a pair of queens with a king or ace, a pair of kings, a pair of aces, or they have ace, king, queen. So how do you beat the worst of those hands? Well, the worst hand they could have is queens, right, with a king. And so just very simply play, you have to beat a pair of queens, so kings are better. So I know of exactly one team that did pull this off. And again, I have been out of the game a long time, and that was about 15 years ago. I also heard directly after I published this on my blog, AP Heat, I heard directly from an advantage player who said, look, Elliot, it is a lot harder than you think it is. You're not seeing all three of the dealer's cards. Not all the cards are sorted. There's mistakes in reading the cards. You don't get your hopes up, right? So I think what happened is that a team tried this and they were marginally successful, and it was just very hard. Somehow blackjack is easier, somehow baccarat is easier, and there have been a lot more successes at those, I think, than three-card poker. Nevertheless, should the situation arise, here is the strategy. So here are pretty much everything that you need to know about edge sorting, proprietary, well, really all games. So in baccarat, I list the two groups. So the group is 0 through 5 and 6 through 9. And then your win per 100 hands. So the Phil Ivey win rate with a $100 wager, 100 hands, they would win on average 676. And you can see Caribbean Stud. Now Casino War, you're not even allowed to touch the cards, but if you could, that would be pretty significant. Let It Ride, three-card poker. And the last one I have there is Mississippi Stud. Now in Mississippi Stud, you're only dealt two cards at a time, right? So I think it's very aspirational to consider ever being able to edge sort Mississippi Stud. I've never heard about this being done in practice. If you have done this, please comment on the results of your attempt. If you've tried this on any game I've listed or not listed, make an anonymous comment. Tell us how you did. I mean, just for the general education of all concerned. Now, the interesting thing about Mississippi Stud is that what's more important here is not the edge sorting part of this, but understanding that Mississippi Stud is uniquely vulnerable as a game. And edge sorting is just card marking. At its core, edge sorting is just marking the cards. Only you're not marking them. The manufacturer pre-marked them for you. So what this really tells you is that somebody who wanted to cheat the game of Mississippi Stud, all they really need to do is to mark the jacks, right? If they just mark the jacks and nothing else, just those four cards with a little daub or a bend a corner or nick it with a chip or whatever, they're making almost $4,000 per 100 hands with a $100 bet. It's that easy, right? It really, truly is that easy. So let's go back to that original question that was asked here. And he's asking about, mistakes and just the cost of errors and how hard is this? Do I have any insights? Fine. I really don't have that many insights. I apologize. But the one other thing is that he says, hey, I can't find your spreadsheets on Mississippi Stud. So I just want to take you to my website and show you exactly where that is. If you go to advancedadvantageplay.com and you go to downloads and you scroll down, you will find here Mississippi Stud Poker Downloads Edge Sorting. And here you will find at great length the edge sorting strategy for every possible situation that could come up, assuming that the deck is perfectly sorted, right? And these are to be used in conjunction with the discussion in my book, Advanced Advantage Play. But he was asking in particular about this file, and so for the person who wrote the email, here it is. Here are the edge sorting files. So look, edge sorting is an amazing opportunity. I can't believe that it went sort of below the radar for as long as it did. Of course, Phil Ivey put an end to that. But always be on the lookout for opportunities. And I don't know if edge sorting is going to be one of those things you're going to run into as a realistic possibility that often. But if for some reason you run into it and it is there, right, then as an advanced advantage player, you have to be ready to beat that game and to know how to access the tools that'll let you do that. Now, this is also a shout out to the casino side because, of course, you have to know in advance that the cards you're using aren't perfect, right? So the way you defend against edge sorting is to make sure that you have a turn in every shuffle procedure. That is to take that deck of cards, take about 50% of the cards, rotate them 180 degrees, and do that as some part of your shuffle so that if any orientation has been put into those cards by a team at the table, then you are disrupting that. That is the single thing you need to do. You do that little turn and this goes away 100%. So, all right, everyone. Hope that was fun for you. This is Elliot Jacobson. See you later.